Hello everyone, and welcome to the unboxing and review of the Sacred Geometry Oracle deck by Francene Hart. I know this deck has been around for a while, but it is new to me. I've been kind of flirting with it online for a while, and I never quite took the plunge, but finally I did. And I couldn't decide between this one and the Sacred Geometry cards for the Visionary Path, which is the other one that she made. So I ended up getting both, obviously. So this unboxing is for the first one. There is a video for the second one, and I actually made a third video of how I use them together, and how, you know, it does create quite a thick deck, but you guys can watch that if you're so curious. So this one, let's go for it. It's a pretty big box, you know, so that's pretty impressive, and it's a really good sturdy box too. It opens up like a drawer. And then we have a book. There is no ribbon that comes with it, so you kind of have to like use your nail to pry it open, which I'm okay with, but I think eventually I probably will glue a ribbon here so I can kind of grab it and lift the book, because I think eventually, not right now, it hasn't quite caused any damage yet, but I think eventually the more I keep like picking at it, it'll start to maybe damage the cover. So this is the cover. It's a pretty good book, isn't it? Like, it's a pretty big book. We have about 143 pages. And they're all like this. You get a black and white image of the card. Then you get the meaning. And on the bottom here, the Flower of Life, there's no reversed aspect. So I like that one. But this one, the lesson, Universal Wisdom, there is a reversed aspect. So you can use this deck, you know, reversal or upright. And it is 64 cards, and they come like this with a plastic tray and divide it in half. So we have a pretty good table of content here. Introduction, what is Sacred Geometry, which I appreciate, using the deck, suggestions for reading the cards. So there are actually quite a few spreads here. So introduction, suggestions for reading the cards, using the deck, what is Sacred Geometry? Just a nice little page on what it is if you're unfamiliar with it. But honestly, I find that you don't really have to fully know what Sacred Geometry is, because I find that these cards, they are almost like a meditation and a learning on how to use the Sacred Geometry in practice, in meditation, in ritual work, in card reading, anything like that. We have a little section on reverse cards, the balancing spread, female and male, or yin, yang, and the balance point, common ground. I like that a lot. Self-actualization spread, present, movement, and outcome. The two movements are your inward journey and your journey into the world. This is really interesting. So where we are today, and then your inward and then outward journey, and then your path to the future, the outcome. The sacred circle. So see, she incorporates Sacred Geometry, the seed of life, into the spreads. We have the star spread, which is, you can also call it the Markova spread. We have the golden spiral. See, so you see there are quite a few spreads here. And then you got the cards, which, you know, we touched on a little bit. So let's see the cards. Now, I will be showing you all of the cards, so if you guys don't want to see all of them, if you're planning on getting this deck and you want to be surprised, then you can skip ahead, or, you know, and just see a few cards, or you can just watch the beginning, or you can skip this part altogether. But they come in two. Now, this is just, so we have this little dip here for the finger, awesome. So I was able to get a handful. But it's not deep enough where my finger goes all the way, and I don't have very long nails. So we're left with a little bit here. So I have to do this, which honestly, I know I'm complaining, but I'm saying, oh, now we're having a hard time with it. Okay. All right, this didn't happen before, but okay. So there we go. Finally, got it. Now, usually, personally, whenever decks like this come in two, it doesn't really bother me that much, but I do keep them out of the box, you know, because I find that when it's like that, especially when we had a little bit of trouble getting this card out, it I don't want to go through that every time I pull out the deck. So I just usually put it in a baggie and I leave it out. So here we go. Here are the backs. They're not exactly reversible, but I think they're beautiful enough where it doesn't bother me. And honestly, they're so simple. It's just, if you're looking at quick enough, it really not that big a deal. I don't find it to be a big deal. Okay, so let's go through the cards. We have the circle. So I really appreciate this deck, and both of them really, but I'll show you guys why. So we have the circle, simple shape. She starts with just a regular geometry. And then we go into a mandala. Now it gets more complex, right? Tzolk'in. So you see there is a spiral here. There are like 3 spirals in a circle. And here it's very similar. We got the 3 spirals in the circle out beyond Orion. Same thing here, right? So she introduces to you the sacred shape, duality. And then we go into a more complex. So where do we see it in the real world, right? So you're talking about duality. Of course, we're going to talk about the yin yang. The Vesica Pisces. We see that here in Echoes of One. We see a feminine and masculine energy. Triangle. We see a lot of triangles in the Sri Yantra, don't we? It is literally made of all triangles. So I love that. And then we have the expanded Sri Yantra. Tetrahedron. Himalayan. And then we get like these triangles, right? And we're looking at the mountain. We see the tetrahedron shape. So I find this to be really, really interesting how in this deck in particular, the Sacred Geometry Oracle cards, it really is an introduction to the simple shape, the square, for example. And then we see the square in the Shakana. And then we have the morning meeting, which is a square here, but we also have the circle, another bigger square, and then the circle. So we're finding that harmony between the different geometric shapes. Hexahedron, Antakarana, Medicine Wheel, the Mayan Dream. So you see now we're starting to get into the squares, but also like movement. There's a square spiral here. Also with some circles, with some spirals too. So there is a mixture of sacred geometry in the artwork. Dancing Through Eternity. Now we get to the golden spiral. See, we get more spirals in the gold within. And I love how these 2 spirals, they come together on the heart chakra. Isn't that beautiful? So we started with a golden spiral. Now we're getting to DNA, right? Which is such a much more complex spiral. Pentagon, 5-pointed star. I love this one. All the little stars everywhere. And it's like stars within stars within stars. It's super interesting. I find her artwork to be so intricate and exciting and different. Right? Because you see the shapes so clearly, and yet those shapes form very familiar shapes, like this flower in the middle. I don't know, I find that to be really, really cool. So we got the volcano and the moon, flower of life. A lot of us are very familiar with this. We get the lesson, dancing prayer, the fruit of life. So see, we started with just a simple circle. Now we're getting very intricate, right? It just gets more and more complex. Metatron's cube, one of my favorite shapes. Nucleus. I pulled this card for myself today. Hexagon. I put them back in shape. I put them back in order for this video, but I have been using them quite a bit since I got them. So you see now we get triangle, but we also get a Merkaba. We also get a Sri Yantra. Like there's so much going on here. These cards are honestly great for meditation, to kind of gaze and get a little bit lost in them. We have the Merkaba, together. I do love the rainbow too. It just, every time it makes me think of like, we're offering, but also the heart chakra space here, the crown, the base. We get all the chakras on top of what this already means. The heptagon, octahedron, the octagon. See, there's so much behind it. We see the very big infinity symbol. That's, to me, almost the most obvious. But then we have these triangles. Then we have smaller triangles within. We also have one triangle pointing up and then smaller ones than that. There's just, and then we have DNA and spirals and the torus. And there's so much going on. Taurus. And then this is the back, right? That back art. Dodecahedron. Icosahedron. The Earth grid. Now, a lot of these shapes to the sacred geometry, these also correspond to different chakras. So if you are trying to do some chakra work or ritual work, or you're trying to meditate or focus on one, you can actually put this maybe on top on your altar or something. And when you meditate, you can just gaze at it and focus that on the chakra. Invitation. I love this one. This one kind of has a, to me anyway, it has a high priestess vibe, if you're familiar with tarot cards. The wise friend. The tree of life, Kabbalah. Tree vessel. And finally, love and power. So yeah, those are the cards. This is the deck, 64 cards of sacred geometry. I find them to be really powerful. So let's read the love and power. Let's see what that's all about. Just so you guys have an idea of what the messages mean. So it's called Intentional Balance. And it says, this is the last card in this oracle deck and represents the culmination of the new and ancient wisdom of sacred geometry. It reminds us the geometry of shape and form is part and parcel of our very existence. Sacred geometry has influenced cultures around the world throughout time, and its wisdom is being remembered in these times to aid in our efforts towards conscious evolution. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll show you guys a little bit of the reversal. So the reversed is, there is much to learn. The path to a balance of love and power is not easy or sure. But by your intention, you will begin today to heal yourself and all those you touch by your willingness to be a part of this journey. Blessings on your path. So I like that. I like that because it talks about balance, right? Especially in this deck in particular. And they're talking about love and power. We can also perhaps talk about balance on the duality card, right? On the duality card, we can talk about that too, of the yin yang. But that goes a little bit deeper into other things, right? So duality is not all about just balance. So I find that this deck to be a daily practice and a constant learning of what sacred geometry is. I am not super familiar with sacred geometry. I know some shapes, but to be honest with you, I don't, I don't know what they do so much, but I am getting deeper into it because of this deck, because I do pull a card from it when I'm meditating, right? To kind of be like, okay, so what's going on today, or what should I focus on? And then perhaps an image comes out and I just kind of look at it for a little bit. I study before I open the book. I am still going to the book quite often, but before I open the book, I just look at it. And I just kind of try to absorb, right, what's going on. Because there's so much. When you take a minute just to look at the image, you can discover a lot of things. So we have this spiral going upward, this column, right? That's, I think, pretty obvious. We have the tree, the most, the stronger image here. But then after a while, you see the spiral on top. And you see that the tree has a face looking upward. And then it's forming this spiral, right? And then we have this light shining from up above. Not only that, but the trunk here, we have this fire coming from within, What does that mean? Is it Kundalini? Is it Kundalini energy rising? Right? Then we go to the top here, and instead of branches, they're hands. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I do love how there is the simple shape. We get the initial shape, right? For example, this one. But then we get more complex into this, the wise friend. Again, another tree, but we have so many triangles and so many different styles, like shapes here and what's going on, right? So anyway, I hope that this unboxing and walkthrough has served you in some way. If you've been curious about this deck, I say go for it. I'm finding it to be really deeply strong. This is a deck that I don't do a full spread with. I have not tried one of the spreads in the book, to be honest. It is a deck right now that I just pull one card and I sit with it for a minute. Just because I like doing that when I'm learning about when I get a new oracle or a new tarot deck. I like to just familiarize myself with it before I do a full reading. Alright guys, so thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I really appreciate your presence and your energy and your love. Have a beautiful day out there.